Silence isn't weakness. Silence often gets misunderstood, especially after a breakup or emotional fallout. It can feel like you're doing nothing, like you're just waiting around. But the truth is, silence is one of the most active, powerful choices you can make. It's the moment you stop trying to fix, prove, explain, or argue. It's when you say, without saying a word, "I'm done giving more than I'm receiving." Going no contact isn't about hiding or avoiding. It's about deciding that you've reached a point where your mental peace, your emotional clarity, and your self-worth are more important than keeping the connection alive at any cost. When you stay in contact with someone who keeps hurting you, whether it's through arguments, silence games, constant confusion, or emotional distance, you stay tied to instability. You may think you're holding on to hope, but what you're really holding on to is a cycle that keeps draining you. Every message you send hoping for change is a message that tells your own mind you're not worth more than this chaos. And every moment you wait for a reply, a validation, a response, it chips away at your power. Staying connected after someone has shown they're willing to ignore your feelings or disrespect your presence doesn't keep the bond alive. It keeps the wound open. Silence changes that. It's not the absence of effort. It's the decision to stop bleeding energy into a space that no longer deserves it. Silence says, "I will not fight for space in someone's life." It says, "I will not keep trying to matter to someone who treats me like an option." You're not punishing anyone by going silent. You're not manipulating them. You're simply withdrawing access. Access to your mind, your presence, your energy, your time. These things are not free, not anymore. Real silence is clarity. When someone's behavior has shown you exactly where they stand, when the mixed signals have stopped being confusing and have simply become predictable, silence becomes your way of honoring what you already know. It's your way of saying, "I understand now, and I don't need anything else to make this decision." If you keep talking after someone has already shown they aren't listening, you're not communicating, you're begging. And begging never brings respect. It brings resentment. Silence, on the other hand, brings you back to yourself. It's natural to want closure, to want the other person to say, "Yes, I see what I did. I understand how much I hurt you. I regret it." But most of the time, that doesn't happen, and waiting for it keeps you stuck. If they couldn't understand your value while you were loving them, what makes you think they'll suddenly understand it now that you've stepped back? The longer you wait for them to give you the peace you deserve, the longer you stay a prisoner to their growth or lack of it. The peace you want must come from your decision to be done. Done chasing, done explaining, done lowering your standards just to keep someone around. No contact is not weakness. It's not fear. It's not passive. It's a line in the sand. It says, "I don't hate you. I just finally love myself enough to walk away." You're not disappearing from their life to hurt them. You're reappearing in your own life to heal. And when that decision is made with clarity, with firmness, and with love for yourself, there is nothing more powerful. This silence isn't empty. It's full of intention. It's not the absence of words. It's the presence of dignity. And it's through that silence that you finally make the statement that couldn't be heard through all the noise before. I matter too. Emotional withdrawal. The moment you decide to go no contact, there's a silence that falls over your life. But it's not the quiet from her that shakes you. It's the chaos inside your own mind. That first night, and every night after, you feel it creeping in. That tug in your chest, that hollow space in your gut. Your fingers itch to unlock your phone, just to scroll past her name, just to see if she's online, just to hear something, anything that tells you she's thinking about you too. You don't even need her to say, "I miss you." You just want to be acknowledged, seen, remembered. But the silence gives you nothing, and in that nothing, your entire inner world starts screaming. This is the withdrawal, and it's real. Your body isn't just reacting to absence, it's reacting to the loss of a cycle it was addicted to. Every emotionally intense moment you shared with her, the late night conversations, the unpredictable bursts of affection, the fights that ended with passionate apologies, the random texts that lit up your heart even after days of distance. Those were not just memories, they were chemical imprints. They taught your brain to depend on her for a spike in emotional energy. Even if it hurt, even if it made you doubt yourself, even if you knew deep down that this kind of love wasn't healthy, it didn't matter. Because it felt real, it felt powerful. It felt like something worth holding on to. So when you cut that off, your body doesn't celebrate your strength. It panics. That panic doesn't show up as fear. It shows up as thoughts. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe she'll reach out soon. Maybe she's hurting too. Your brain starts replaying every beautiful moment over and over like a highlight reel. It filters out the nights you cried alone, the mornings you waited for, replies that never came, the times you questioned your own worth just to keep the peace. It filters those out, and instead it shows you her smile, her touch, the way she used to rest her head on your chest. It shows you what could have been, not what actually was. And that's the trap. You're not missing her. You're missing the feeling. You're missing the dopamine. You're missing the illusion of love, of connection, of significance. But ask yourself, was it really love if it left you empty? Was it connection if you had to constantly prove yourself to keep it alive? Was it significance if you only felt important when she chose to let you feel it? This is why so many men go back, not because they're weak, not because they haven't heard all the right advice, but because they've wrapped their identity around being wanted, even by someone who didn't truly value them. And now, without her attention, they don't know who they are anymore. That emptiness they feel, it's not from losing her. It's from losing the identity they built around being chosen by her. But this pain, this ache, it's not a signal to go back. It's a signal to go deeper. This is where the real work starts. Not on day one of silence, but on the days when the silence turns into doubt. When you question your decision, when you open your phone and stare at her number, when you almost type a message and stop just before you hit send. That's where you start breaking the pattern. Every time you don't reach out, every time you sit with the urge instead of feeding it, you're not just surviving, you're rewiring your mind. You're teaching yourself that you are capable of holding emotional discomfort without running to someone who made you feel small. If she never texts again, if you never hear from her again, who do you become? That's the real test. Because if your peace depends on her return, then you never really claimed it in the first place. If you're still sitting in silence, hoping she breaks it, then you're not in control, she is. And it's time to take that control back. Not by getting even, not by proving anything, but by choosing yourself every single day, even when it hurts. You are not your cravings. You are not your loneliness. You are not the voice in your head telling you that maybe things weren't so bad. You are the one observing all of that. And if you can observe it, you can overcome it. You don't need to be saved by a text. You need to be rebuilt by your own silence. This is not abandonment. This is alignment. This is the part where you become your own anchor. And yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, you're going to want to check on her. Yes, you're going to feel like you're going crazy at times. But keep going. Because the man who keeps going despite the noise, despite the fear, despite the ache, that man doesn't just heal. He transforms. He becomes untouchable. Not because he stopped caring, but because he started caring about the one person he had ignored for far too long, himself. This withdrawal is not the end. It's the reset. And the man who makes it through this, without sending the text, without checking the profile, without going back to what broke him, that man never looks back the same way again. Pain that builds. There's a very specific kind of pain that follows when you cut contact with someone you once gave everything to. It's the type of pain that lingers quietly beneath your skin, not sharp or dramatic, but steady. Always there, tightening in your chest when the memories show up, when the silence feels heavier than usual, when the nights stretch too long and the mornings start too early. It's not just missing someone. It's missing a life you thought you were building. It's missing the version of yourself that still believed it was all going to work out. This pain doesn't scream. It whispers. It whispers doubt. It whispers guilt. It asks you again and again if you've done the right thing. But here's what makes this kind of pain different. It doesn't come to break you. It comes to wake you up. There is pain that destroys, and there is pain that cleanses. One makes you smaller, more afraid, more unsure of yourself. The other forces you to let go of what was never truly yours to begin with. And the pain that comes with no contact, the pain that rises in the silence, is the cleansing kind. It doesn't feel like it at first. At first it feels unbearable. It feels like punishment, like abandonment. You wake up reaching for someone who's not there. You go to sleep hoping they'll reach out. You check your phone reflexively. You think about what you could have said, should have done, what you missed. You replay everything, looking for something you overlooked, something that would give you a reason to believe they cared as much as you did. But the truth hits hard. They didn't. And that truth? It's not cruel, it's clarity. The absence of contact doesn't just show you who they are, it reveals parts of you that have been hidden under layers of compromise and self-abandonment. You realize how much of yourself you gave away just to keep a connection alive, how often you put their comfort ahead of your sanity, how many of your own values you set aside to avoid conflict. And now that you're no longer caught up in the daily drama, the slow erosion, the moments of false hope followed by disappointment, you begin to see just how far you strayed from your own center. That realization stings, it burns. But that's the beginning of healing. Healing isn't a gentle path. It's not warm baths and motivational quotes. It's sitting with the weight of every ignored gut instinct. It's facing the reality that you stayed far longer than you should have. Not because you were weak, but because you believed in someone who didn't show up for you in return. It's admitting that you saw the signs but hoped your loyalty would change them. And now, in the silence, you don't get to lie to yourself anymore. That's where the real pain starts. But that's also where the real transformation begins. This kind of pain is doing something important. It's burning away the illusion. It's cleaning the wound the right way, not with distractions or rebounds, but with direct truth. Every night you endure the loneliness without breaking your silence. Every time you resist the urge to explain your worth to someone who never asked. Every time you choose solitude over settling. You're building something deep inside you. Not a wall, not bitterness. Something far stronger. You're building emotional discipline. You're building boundaries that no longer shake when tested. You're building self-trust. You may not see it yet, but this pain is carving out space in you for something better. A better understanding of yourself. A better standard for how you want to be treated. A better definition of love, one that includes respect, clarity, and consistency. And the longer you stay committed to your silence, the more you start realizing that you don't actually miss them. You miss the idea, the fantasy, the emotional safety you thought you had. And once that's gone, the only thing left to rebuild is you. So sit in it. Let it hurt. Don't numb it. Don't try to escape it with distractions. Don't rush to replace them with someone new. Let the silence stretch long enough for you to remember who you were before the confusion. Let it strip away the noise, the lies, the versions of yourself you had to become just to keep their attention. Let the pain guide you, not backward, but forward. Because this pain isn't punishment, it's purification. It's teaching you that your peace is worth protecting, that you don't need to earn love by suffering for it, that the ache in your chest is not a signal to go back. It's a sign that you're finally facing the truth. And when the ache fades, and it will, you'll feel something else settle in its place. Not the rush of infatuation, not the thrill of attention, something quieter, something deeper. Peace. The kind that doesn't depend on anyone else's actions. The kind that can't be shaken by who leaves or who stays. The kind that comes only when you've walked through your pain and found yourself on the other side. Unbroken, unbitter, unshakably clear on who you are and what you will never accept again. Breaking the illusion. What you're clinging to right now might not be the actual person you lost, but a carefully built version of them your mind constructed over time. And that version, the one in your memory, is not only incomplete, it's distorted. It was shaped during the good moments, the rare highs, the sweet words between chaos, the temporary warmth between cold silences. That version of her is the one who kissed your forehead, who laughed at your jokes when the world felt heavy, who whispered things that made you believe she understood you. It's the version who leaned in close during your darkest moments and said she'd never leave. But here's the truth that's hard to accept. That woman may have only existed in flashes, and if you're honest, most of those flashes faded quickly into confusion, silence, emotional distance, and a constant sense of not being enough. What you're missing, more than the person, is the potential you saw in her. The idea of what she could have been if everything had just aligned. If only she had healed. If only she had seen your worth. If only she had chosen you fully. That's the real source of the ache. The story you told yourself about what it all meant. The human brain hates uncertainty. It hates not having answers. And when someone leaves you confused, when the ending is blurry, when the relationship dies slowly instead of suddenly, it creates a vacuum. And that vacuum doesn't stay empty for long. Your mind starts filling it in with narratives. It tells you, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was your fault. Maybe if you had just loved her better, she would have stayed. That narrative becomes a story of self-blame wrapped in the illusion of loyalty. And in that story, she is the almost perfect woman. The woman who was just one step away from being everything you ever wanted. That illusion becomes addictive, because as long as you believe it, you don't have to face the real truth, that the relationship you were in did not match the fantasy you kept alive in your head. Fantasy is seductive. It gives you hope. It tells you that maybe if you wait long enough, if you stay silent just the right amount of time, she'll miss you. She'll come back better. She'll realize everything she overlooked. But ask yourself, if she was everything you imagined her to be, would you have had to go no contact in the first place? Would you have felt like you were chasing her approval, questioning your worth, shrinking your voice just to avoid conflict? The truth is, fantasy requires selective memory. You remember her softness, but forget her silence. You remember the intimacy, but forget the emotional distance that always followed. You remember how she looked at you, but forget how many nights she didn't ask how you felt. The illusion survives by hiding the damage, and the longer you hold on to it, the more you betray your own truth. You weren't in a partnership. You were in a pattern. One where your needs were quieted, your intuition was doubted, your identity was slowly shaped by the fear of losing her. You adjusted. You overextended. You forgave without change, and you called it love. But real love doesn't require you to question yourself constantly. It doesn't leave you emotionally starving. It doesn't use silence as control or affection as manipulation. Real love is steady. It's honest. It's mutual. And what you had might have had glimpses of that, but glimpses aren't enough to build a future on. Now, in the quiet that follows no contact, the fantasy begins to crack. It doesn't shatter all at once. It fades slowly, like mist rising from a field at dawn. You start to see the inconsistencies. You remember the conversations where you walked on eggshells. You recall how often you were confused about where you stood, and how you justify every cold moment because you were so addicted to the occasional warmth. The silence gives you space to remember what actually happened, not what you hoped would happen, and that's where healing begins. Breaking the illusion means telling yourself the truth, even when it hurts. It means stopping yourself mid-thought and saying, that's not how it really went. It means looking at the whole picture, not just the highlight reel. It means asking yourself honestly, how did I feel most of the time in that relationship? Was I calm, respected, seen? Or was I anxious, reactive, and unsure? If you were constantly in survival mode, that wasn't love. That was trauma dressed up in affection. Let go of the fantasy. Let go of the version of her that only existed in your imagination. Let go of the story that says you needed to do more to be loved properly. You did enough. You tried enough. And you stayed long enough to know that trying harder wouldn't change anything. Some people cannot love the way you need to be loved, not because you're unlovable, but because they're still wrestling with their own wounds. And waiting for them to become someone else keeps you trapped in a relationship that only exists in your head. You don't have to hate her. You don't have to paint her as a villain, but you do have to stop painting her as someone she never consistently was. You can love the moments. You can honor the connection, but you must also accept the reality, because reality, as painful as it is, will set you free. Fantasy will keep you stuck checking your phone, stuck hoping for a return, stuck rewriting the past into something it never truly was. But reality will move you forward. It will give you the strength to say, I don't want someone who might love me right. I want someone who does. No contact is more than just silence. It's the final chapter of the story you've been writing alone. And when that chapter ends, you don't chase the sequel. You begin a new book, a better one where the main character isn't trying to be chosen. He's choosing himself. Rebuilding identity. Who are you without them? This is the chapter that most men never reach, not because they can't, but because they get stuck in the noise of longing, memories, and regret. But if you've made it to this moment of silence, genuine silence, not the kind filled with distractions and fake moves to seem strong, then what you're experiencing is not just loss. It's space. Space you haven't had in a long time. Space to hear yourself think. Space to feel your emotions without being interrupted by someone else's drama or moods. Space to actually ask the one question that matters more than all the closure conversations, all the apologies, and all the second chances in the world. Who am I without her? And not the her you romanticized, not the one you kept justifying, not the one who gave you a few amazing memories, but the actual, complicated, inconsistent person who left you mentally spinning and emotionally depleted. You've spent months, maybe years, organizing your identity around her needs, her emotions, her energy. You learned what to say and what not to say depending on how she was that day. You adjusted your moods to avoid conflict. You suppressed your needs so you wouldn't seem too needy. You stopped doing things you used to love because your mind was always trying to figure out how to make her happy. And somewhere along the way, the man you were, the one with drive, focus, pride, curiosity, ambition, he started fading. He became a version of you that operated mostly from reaction, from survival, from emotional dependence. And now, in the aftermath of all of that, when her energy is finally gone, when your phone doesn't buzz with her name, when the emotional weight she carried into your world has disappeared, you're left standing still in the silence, maybe for the first time in years. And in that stillness, you have no more distractions. Just the mirror, just the truth, just yourself. This moment isn't about her. It never was. It's about the man who was buried beneath the chaos, the one who gave up too many pieces of himself, trying to protect something that was never truly safe, the one who forgot what it meant to feel grounded in his own identity, not dependent on someone else's love to feel whole. And the most powerful truth you'll learn in this silence is this: you don't need her to come back to feel peace again. You don't need anyone to apologize or validate what you already know deep down. You were worth more than what you settled for. And now, this is the moment to remember exactly who you are. So ask yourself, what dreams did you put on pause while you were consumed by emotional conflict? What habits fell apart while you were prioritizing the wrong person? What friendships did you let fade because you were too wrapped up in someone who never made space for your real self? This is the work now. Not revenge, not proving anything. Just the slow, focused return to who you were always meant to be. Wake up with purpose, move your body, read again, create again, reflect again. Rebuild your mental clarity, your emotional discipline, your sense of mission. You don't need to become someone new. You just need to reconnect with the man you were before you started shrinking yourself to fit someone else's story. And when you rebuild with integrity, when your days are no longer shaped by what someone else feels about you, but instead by what you know to be true about yourself, everything changes. You stop chasing women who give mixed signals. You stop tolerating half-hearted love. You stop needing external validation just to feel secure, because now your peace comes from within. Your sense of worth is no longer up for negotiation. You're no longer seeking love to complete you. You're offering love from a place of fullness. You are no longer a man trying to prove he's enough. You are a man who knows he is. And here's the beauty of this truth. Once you've tasted what it feels like to walk through your pain and still hold your head high, to sit in your solitude and feel peace instead of panic, to hear your own thoughts and not drown them out with noise or female attention, you will never settle again. You won't even entertain the kind of chaos you once craved, because that man, the one who begged, who justified, who accepted crumbs, is gone. Not bitter, not angry, just no longer available. So if she never comes back, so be it. If she does, and she hasn't grown, she no longer fits into this chapter of your life. Because the man you are now isn't afraid of losing people who don't value him. He's afraid of losing himself again. And that fear, that sacred fear, is what keeps him grounded, focused, strong, and clear. Final strength. Set the standard. This is the turning point. You've walked through every hard moment. You've stood in the fire of missing her and didn't run back. You've faced the long nights without distraction, resisted the urge to break the silence, and rebuilt the foundation beneath your own feet. And now, after all the emotional withdrawals, the waves of doubt, the crushing weight of truth, and the long process of remembering who you are, you arrive here at the final and most important decision, the decision to set your standard. Not as a way to punish anyone, not as a performance to prove your strength to the world, but as a quiet, non-negotiable vow to yourself. A standard isn't a list of demands for others. It's a line you draw around your peace, around your mind, around your time, and around your heart. It's the rules of engagement that govern how you allow people to interact with your life. And now, after everything, you finally realize that healing isn't just about getting back on your feet. It's about choosing to never crawl again for someone who doesn't recognize your worth. It's about promising yourself that you will never again ignore your own intuition just to keep a connection alive, that you will never silence your truth just to avoid losing someone, that you will never again make space for confusion to replace clarity or allow access to your energy without the presence of effort, consistency, and real care. The next time you sense manipulation dressed as affection, the next time someone pulls back just to see if you'll chase, the next time your peace is tested by someone who only shows up when they feel like it, you don't react, you don't beg, you don't make speeches, you simply walk away, not out of anger, but out of alignment with your new standard. Because the man you are now, the one you became in this silence, he's not here to be picked when someone is finally ready, he's already chosen himself. And that choice, once made with full awareness, is irreversible. You won't go back to tolerating emotional leftovers. You won't participate in half-built relationships, hoping they eventually turn into homes. You won't overextend yourself for someone who can't meet you halfway. You've learned that love without respect is manipulation, that attention without effort is a distraction, and that passion without peace is simply chaos. You now know that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's clarity, it's leadership. Because when a man sets a real standard, not just in words but in practice, he doesn't need to explain it. His actions speak for him, his boundaries protect him, and his energy stops flowing in places that don't value it. From this point forward, it's no longer about what you want from others, it's about what you expect of yourself. You do not explain your value to people committed to misunderstanding it. You do not entertain chaos to feel connection. You do not bend so far backwards that you forget how to stand upright. And you do not allow pain to become your normal just because you're afraid of starting over. Now, you begin every new interaction from your standard, not your fear. You show up whole, not hoping to be completed. You offer love, not because you're trying to earn something back, but because you're full enough to give it freely. And when people come and go, when some lean in and others walk away, you don't chase, you don't panic, you let them. Because you know what you're worth. And now that you've rebuilt your identity in silence, that value isn't up for debate. So, set your standard and live it without apology. Not loudly, not in anger, just steadily, like a man who has finally remembered what peace feels like. That's the strength that doesn't fade. That's the silence that protects. That's the version of you that never begs again. If you've watched this far, you're not just looking for answers. You're ready for transformation. You're tired of surviving heartbreak. You're ready to turn pain into principle, silence into strength, loss into leadership. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. You're not waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And no matter what happens next, who stays, who leaves, who regrets, who forgets, you will walk with calm, with clarity, and with unshakable self-respect. You are not a victim of your past. You are the author of your future, and you just turned the page. If this video spoke to you, comment unstoppable. That one word tells me you stayed, you listened, you're in it for real. And more importantly, it tells every other man reading that he's not alone. Support this channel, not just because it helps us grow, but because it helps this message reach men who are still stuck in silence. Men who don't know that peace is possible. Every like, every share, every comment puts this clarity into someone else's hands. You are not broken. You are becoming. Let's build stronger men. Together.